there's a part of me that's a bit cheap. And so anytime that I'm at the grocery store, I'm always passing by the discounted aisle, the place where they have discounted meats or discounted foods because they were damaged. Maybe they're about to expire or something has happened to them. And I saw this bundle of chocolate donuts and thought, oh, let me give those a try. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Coffee Q&A, your daily coffee Q&A here on the Ono Live channel, on the Ono Coffee channel. We are here most Monday through Friday, 10 a.m., talk coffee. So how y'all doing? Welcome to the show. So today we're going to be talking about coffee and donuts, which is a really ubiquitous and popular pairing, especially here in the United States. I mean, it's really popular worldwide in different forms. If you're not too familiar, or you probably are familiar, but the donut that we know today actually has its origins in ancient Greek and Egypt, where the pharaohs would fry dough and then serve it glazed with honey. So the glazed donut has been around for a very, very long time. And of course, it's matured and changed over the years into what we know today. Now, how did we get to the point where we have these chocolate holes in them? Is because at some point in time, as they were frying the dough, the bakers found that, okay, the center of the dough ball was the hardest one to get to cook through fully, right? You really had to cook it for a long time. And they learned that if they punched out the center, they could fry it or cook it a lot more rapidly because now more surface area is exposed to whatever that's cooking it, and it would cook faster. So that's kind of how that developed. They did that, and then it wasn't until like the late 1800s when it really started to become closer to what we know today. Evidently, there's a legend in the 1850s where this German soldier was denied being conscripted into the army for whatever reason. He had some kind of problem or whatever, and they didn't let him in. So he was really dejected. So he decided he's going to become a baker. And he started baking things like these donuts, and they called them Berliners. And so in Germany, sometimes donuts are called Berliners. And then over time, it comes forward, and we get to America, and then comes Dunkin' Donuts, in the early 20th century, Krispy Kreme. And now we're here with a whole variety of donuts that are basically some kind of dough, whether it's yeasted or cakey dough, and then it's typically fried, but sometimes it's baked and sometimes it's vegan. But the question really is, in our world, Keone, aloha to you, man. How are things in Thailand? And Rusty's with coffee and the donuts. Yeah, I saw this yesterday at the store, and I was like, that's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to eat donuts and coffee. But these are really simple donuts. And donuts are really, well, of course, back in the days of the Egyptians and the Greeks, as with many of the things that we enjoy today, dessert-wise or sweets-wise, they were really reserved for the highest levels of society, the leaders, because, they were just much more hard to come by, just kind of like how the kakigori or the shaved ice or snowballs in the olden days would only be for like the kings and the emperors, because they would have to go to the mountain. They would send servants to the mountains to go harvest the snow and bring it back and then put flavored sip. Your average peasant, in other words, people like us, could never afford to do that, right? But now it's very ubiquitous and it's worldwide. So the donut here, though, is something that's very much a common man's kind of food. Everybody eats it. But of course, as we've gotten into more modern times, there's always someone trying to elevate that. And the question is, do we really need to elevate the donut, right? It's a very simple product. We just need some flour, we need some sugar, we need maybe some yeast, maybe a little bit of salt, and sugar, and that's pretty much it, right? Just shape, mix it up, let it rise, shape it out, cut it out, or whatever you do it, deep fry, and then you're pretty much done. Peter, to you, aloha to you as well, man. How are you doing today? Okay, so this is the donut. This is a chocolate donut. Now, this one is made by my local grocery store, a place called Giant, and it's got, these are 10 donuts, normally for like, I don't know, $1.50. I mean, probably like $3, $3.25 or something like this. Well, I got it for $1.64 because, like I said, I'm a cheap kind of guy. Now, the thing is that you always kind of wonder, like, I grew up, well, let me rewind. I've told you guys before that I grew up in a very blue collar, working class kind of neighborhood here in Baltimore, that at least for my pre-elementary school years. So like up until I was like 5 or 6 years old, we lived in, very humble kind of places where this kind of food was really a big thing. So for me, these kind of like chocolate donuts or even the powdered sugar donuts that are small that come in the bag, like from Entenmann's or places like that, I kind of love them, right? I still love them today. But the problem is, are they, should we be eating? Okay, so we generally accept that we should not be eating them. Fat content, sugar content, it's not good for us, whatever the case. But let's have a look at their ingredient list, at least for this one that from the grocery store. I had to take a photo of it too, because I can't read it anymore. But let's see what we have here. We've got enriched bleach flour, which is a wheat flour with niacin, with reduced iron thiamine, mononitrates, riboflavins, folic acids. Okay, so that's all within that, the enriched white flour. So white flour, so AP flour, sugar, water, dextrose, soy flour, partially hydrogenated vegetable shortening, contains 2% less of leavening. Oh yeah, 2% or less of baking soda, sodium acid pyrophosphate. So basically baking soda. Corn flour. There's a lot of stuff here. I don't know why in the world you need to put all of this in there. Hydrogenated palm kernel oil. A lot of these things are done so that you can kind of keep it moist and preserved over a period of time that's longer than your typical naturally produced, donut. For example, if I go to the local donut shop and I buy a fresh donut, it's great, but it doesn't last that long, maybe a day. By the time that I bought this, it's already old. So they're probably, who knows how long. They made it packed on July 13th. And I bought it yesterday. So we're talking over 2 weeks old now. So that's one of the things about these kind of products. They add all these ingredients so that the preservatives so it will hold over a long period of time. So if you want to get something nice, get away from it. But I don't think we need to have a world where we need to have I don't think we need to have $5 donuts in order to have something that's nice. I think it can be produced at a reasonable price, or just at a cheaper price, but without necessarily all the agents to make it that. But we're going to get into that more. First, we're going to have coffee with it, right? So let me turn on I forgot to turn on my flame. We're going to get the water heated back up. And so like we did the last couple of days, we're going to be using the House Nation from Spur Coffee, our coffee of the week this week. And as we've been doing, we're going to use our lovely ODZ Benjerong dripper. And but this time we're going to change it up and go back to like just the general standard Melita number 4 filter. This is the one we just use from wherever. Now, over the last couple of days, we did have some interesting results. The first 2 days that we were doing this coffee, brewing it, it was nice, a little bit more bitterness coming out of the coffee. But yesterday, when we're talking about our kettles and working with, adjusting the temperature down a little bit more. So we're starting to brew when the water reached about a 201 Fahrenheit. And then we ended up with brew water that was really like around 184, 183, 185. That reduced the bitterness, right, from the previous 2 days and brought out a little more sweetness, a little bit more brightness, which I thought was kind of pleasant. Now with this kind of thing, because we've got this abundance of sweet, and these particular donuts are a chocolate, kind of a dark chocolate. So especially if we were talking about doing the powdered donuts, which they didn't have, at least on sale. I would definitely think more towards the bitter end. But I think this one, because it has that cacao-ness, that darker chocolate kind of character, perhaps we will let that water cool down a little bit more so that we can, get a little bit more sweetness out of the coffee, a little bit less bitterness in the coffee. That should pair, I think that'll pair nicer with these donuts. I don't know. So what do you guys think? So what's been happening? Anything interesting? What's going on with this? Is it's burning? All right, let me just get our coffee ready while the water is heating. We've got our AWS scale here. Let's keep the donuts just in frame so we know what we're talking about. And as always, we're going to measure out 24 grams. A little bit too much. 24.4. That's good. Peter says chocolate like coffee is naturally that heart in the bottom of the corner of the screen always gets in the way. Naturally behind when roasted. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Once somebody else messages, then I'll be able to fully read that. All right. Here is our scale of scales, the Baratza Virtual. So we're going to be using it in the same way that we have been. Bitter. Thank you. There it is. I can finally see that word. Chocolate like coffee is naturally bitter when roasted. There we go. There we go. Exactly. So here we go. We got this Baratza Virtuoso at the 20 setting, the center setting that we had good results with that for the whole time, especially with this coffee and for pour over. So let's put that coffee in there, grind it up. You see that flying around there, didn't you? So the last piece, we're trying to get the last piece into the burrs. This is probably the most exciting part of every day's live stream is the grind cam. The grind cam is the way to go. All right, so we've got our coffee already ground. Now it's time to get our paper filter. We're going to prepare because now we're talking about conical filters, right? So it's conical. We want to fold it over from the point to point of the seam, and that'll give us an oblong conical that will work in these type of grinders. Now, in these type of brewers, we're going to use our display here. And then, of course, the Monet, the handmade Monet flowers encased in resin holder for the Benderon. Then there, oh man, so pretty. Look at that. That is such a pretty viewpoint, right? Now this one will sit in here. Now, let's see how it sits. And what we found is that this one, because it is a more of an oblong shape, I don't think the point sits down as far as the other one. So I think the other one's just maybe a millimeter too longer. We're going to put that in here. And then we're going to add our ground coffee. Shake it off to level it out. All right. And then we're going to put this on our nice. Okay, so tear that out. Good. I'm going to get our OSO timer there. We're just waiting for the water to boil. Q&A says, Coco Samoa is a drink where 100% chocolate is boiled with water. Oh, when you say chocolate, do you mean like the actual produced chocolate or more the cacao or cacao nibs? If unsweetened, it really tastes like coffee. Oh, in Samoa, they make the chocolate rice. They make a chocolate rice dish called kokolaisi. Kokolaisi, is that right? Oh, that's very interesting. Coco Samoa. Oh, cacao de Gracia. That sounds great. I've had something similar. I don't remember where, but like I have had times when we've had not necessarily ground cacao, but like broken up cacao that's been steeped in like a tea kind of setting, and I thought that was very enjoyable, very very enjoyable. And of course, it's going to depend how much they roast that cacao, but yeah, I can totally see that would be quite tasty. It's a good reason to go to Samoa. Okay, so we got our Hario Fit kettle. We're almost to the boiling point. And yeah, I did not know they grew cacao there. I saw some cacao that they're growing at the Greenwell Farms in Kealakekua on the Big Island. I was there last year. Actually, I did a video of the farm tour with our tour guide, Kavena Gregg, and actually that comes out tomorrow. That's tomorrow's video. Is a tour of Greenwell Farms and a little bit. And it's interesting. Like for most of the time that I've been in coffee, Hawaii had been kind of protected from a lot of the plagues that infest other farms around the world, most notably the coffee bearer borer or CBB, as well as the rust disease. It's a fungus that kind of not eats, but turns the leaves of a coffee tree. It's a fungus that gets on the leaves and it basically kills the leaves, which of course stops photosynthesis, which eventually will kill the tree and decimate farms. I've been to farms in El Salvador that were just nearly wiped out completely. And we're talking thousands and thousands of trees just wiped out because they were unable to control the rust disease. All right, we are good now, boiled. Again, we're going to pour a lot of volume of water so that we have a good thermal mass. We don't have too much temperature loss. And I'm going to leave the kettle slightly open for a little bit longer, just so that I can get a little bit more cooling. Rusty says, did I interview Tommy Greenwell? No, I did not interview Tommy Greenwell. I just kind of went there as a tourist. Like I try to go to places and not tell them what I do for a living, right? I don't want, I mean, it's in some cases they know who I am. Like I've been to places where they knew who I was because of what I do in the industry. But for the most part, if I go someplace, I try not to tell anyone because I want to have an experience that is, or at least for the video, I want to have an experience I want to show an experience that would be reflective of what anyone might receive when they go there, right? Now, of course, I realize that especially if I'm going to, wherever I go, like in a coffee shop, especially environment, because I'm carrying a camera, automatically that sets me apart. So the person that I'm interacting with may or may not be a little bit more edited or self-conscious because of that. All right, so let's we're brewing along 92.6 grams. I poured a little bit heavy that time. We're only at 42 seconds, but I'm going to give it a little wetting there. Kimmy says, next time I'm in Hawaii, I will get you some. Ooh, nice. They usually sell them in Polynesian stores. Oh, interesting. Peter says, coffee rust. Yes, absolutely. That's why you graft Arabica coffee onto Robusta rootstock, more hardy. And that's something that actually I believe that, well, I mean, some of the trees that we saw at Greenwell, that's what they were doing. They would take Liberica rootstock and graft on Typica to them. And then now they're because of all the rust that came. And so the rust and CBB really started coming, or the rust especially started arriving in August of 2020. So it's really recent to the islands. And what I saw, and so what we saw during the tour in some of the greenhouses, that they're trying different stocks also being grafted onto Liberica. things like Castillo from Colombia. I don't know if the Castillo. Oh yeah, I think the one that I saw was a Castillo Liberica hybrid. At least that's what the labeling is. You'll see in the video that I show some of the seedlings in the greenhouse. That there's one called I want to say pupuseria, but that can't be right. Maybe it is pupuseria. There's a newer one, and then there's also, I think they're also trying to work with some Paranema that's from Honduras and a few others. I don't recall. Actually, this video I edited like over a week ago. I finished the edit over a week ago. I've been kind of like chilling this last week, but I have started working on the next week's video. Hopefully, it'll be done by next week. One about a place called Chuan Ho Coffee Factory in Klang, Malaysia. And that's a very different kind of world of coffee. There in the peninsula, southern Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, they have a whole like different world of coffee shops, place called kopitiams. And these kopitiams are kind of like coffee shop food hybrids that were originally geared to producing very affordable priced food and beverage for a working class person. And we're 3 minutes, 270. We're a little bit slow. Let me just speed up a little bit. But it's a very different kind of coffee world. Like we went to the Chuan Ho is actually the coffee factory, the coffee roastery that supplies a lot of these kopitiams. And honestly, I was there and we were looking at this product in the bin and I didn't even know. I didn't understand what I was looking at. I was like, it looks like broken pieces of glassy asphalt. And I was just like, what is going on here? Okay, let's go to 350. 350, there we go, 350. The one from Greenwell is about 42 minutes long, so it's a little bit of a longer video, but I really just kind of followed and shot the video in a way where if you were actually a visitor to the farm, this is pretty much the experience you would have. I did edit out some of the more extraneous stuff that really didn't have anything to do with the coffee that we're talking about. But I think it's informative. It's kind of a little bit different than the one we did at Silver Cloud Farm in Kona, but I think it's interesting because especially since Greenwell is kind of like they're like the biggest of the Kona producers, and they're probably one of the bigger farms in the house. They're not as big as Kauai Coffee, but they're definitely a very sizable farm, and they've been doing it for generations now. So a lot of farmers that are in Hawaii, like there's over 600 farmers in Kona itself. And so these Kona farm, a lot of them will bring they're just growing coffee, and quite a number of them more gentleman farmers than anything else. But they'll grow their coffee, they'll have it harvested, and then they'll bring the cherries to Greenwell, who will buy their cherries per pound, and then process it and sell it as their own. It's a little bit different than the kind of like narrower focus that we prefer for coffee. Like the Greenwell is a pretty wide swath of coffees from Kona. I prefer to buy coffee from very narrow samplings, right? But just different. But they're able to supply very sizable quantities of coffee for the bigger clienteles that want them. Keone says, I wonder if the wild coffee trees in Waianae and Makaha valleys are affected. Maybe, but they could be isolated enough that it hasn't necessarily reached them, because the nearest coffee farms on Oahu are going to be on the other side of the mountain in the Central Valley, in the old sugarcane plantations up by Waialua. So I don't think there's coffee grown anywhere there. I mean, theoretically, the trade winds and all that can bring the spores theoretically across oceans, but I don't know if that's true. I'm sure it's true. I mean, we have volcanic ash traveling the world, so that's probably true. But I don't know. I don't know if next time you're in Waianae, you see the trees. If you look at them, the rust, it looks like brown wilting on the tree, and the leaves will be falling off. And where a tree would normally be full of leaves, the rust affected trees are very barren of leaves. Peter says, my coffee plants died. They are hard to grow. And being in the lowlands, there's no bean density. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I hear you on that, because I've got a couple of trees that we propagated here over the years. Like, I went to Mexico one year back in 24, maybe 10 years ago. I got some Azteca Oro seeds from the regional ag station there. And oh my. And I propagated those, but only one of those over the years, only one has survived. And then I got some geisha from Costa Rica, and again, only one of those trees survives there. So I have two trees. One is a geisha, one is Azteca Oro, but I don't know. Actually, they could be, I don't even know. It could be one of the same. It could be two different. I don't know, but I don't know. I have to go figure out how to identify them. But Reese, they've struggled because they've always been indoor plants, and so like this year, I was like, I put them outside, give them partial sun, and then so that has helped a lot. Replant them, larger pots, give them better root balls, get the roots more aired out, and I think that's helping, because the fruit that started showing up last year that never ripened is now really ripening. So that's a positive thing for. Oops, gotta rinse this out. Gosh, that is nice. That is nice and sexy looking. All right, let's get this out of the way. Get our glass. Keone says that Greenwell Farms is a great place to visit. I totally agree. Like I've been there several times over the years. I remember going there back like in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, and it's they're set up well for, or they've been doing it for a long time, so they're very well geared towards visitors. And they've got a small visitor center. You can buy all kinds of coffees. You can taste all the coffees that they produce. They brew them all in little air pots, and take little sips of them. So it's a real nice experience, and they always have tours. The tours leave like every, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is. And at least our tour guide, Kavena, very, very knowledgeable, very friendly, very, very patient. You get some tourists, they ask some questions, they're just kind of like, and they'll ask questions or repeat things, and I'm like, he's really good at this. He's really good. He's really one of those aloha guys that really reminds me of some of the guys I worked with when I worked for Roberts Hawaii, driving tour buses. Yeah, those guys there are some guys who are really, really like patient with like visitors. Sometimes I'm not that good at that, right? Peter says the Malaysian asphalt coffee is because they added sugar and margarine during. Yes. I mean, so I found that out as we were going. And unfortunately, by the time we arrived at Chuanho, it was actually around 1:30 in the afternoon. So had we gone at like 6 in the morning, we would have seen the entire process. But by this point, they had already finished production for the day. And the owner showed us around. And he actually kind of showed us how they roast the coffee. But since everything is shut down and they were already in the midst of cleaning everything, because I'm looking at that stuff and I was like, what is that? What's going on with that? Like, what is it? I don't even know what it is anymore, because it's so dark, right? By the time it goes into the cooling tray, it's so dark. And so what these guys are doing, they're fire roasting, or they're roasting the coffee in an earthen wood-fired oven, which is like 62 years old. Like it's the original oven they built, or roaster that they built. They have a mechanical roaster like we're used to, but they mainly use this earthen roaster. Put the green in, roast it, and the roasting isn't terribly dark at this point. And sometimes I think they add some margarine to it, take it out, then they put it in this vat, which is kind of the shape of a wok that has a mechanical stir that sticks down into it. And then they put the coffee in there, more margarine, sugar, and that's also wood fired, and they're heating it until it becomes caramelized, but not brown caramelized, like black caramelized. And then they dump it into this stainless steel trough where they spread it out and they cool it, and it becomes this like glass-like, like coffee brittle. Like you imagine peanut brittle, but like a black coffee brittle, and it's all like looks like molten. It looks like the kind of lava, like that craggly lava instead of the smooth lava, and it's all like. Oh no, actually, I guess maybe it's more like the other one, but somewhere between. But that's when I first saw it, and I was like, "What in the world?" What I was like, "What is that?" And then as we went through the tour, or as he was showing us, they break it up and they put them in these big grinders that grinds it down into a powder, and that's what they sell. I was like, "Wow, fascinating! Like wildly fascinating to me." And, you know, it's something that's so different than what I do for a living. This world of specialty coffee, this beautiful world of specialty coffee. Like to me, it's a little bit boring sometimes. Like if I go to a place, like you can go to like cafes around the world now, and like they're all specialty cafes. And yes, they're serving beautiful coffees. They're very nice, well grown, well sourced, well produced, processed, imported, roasted, all that, brewed beautifully, right? Beautiful. But they're all the same. They're all following the same playbook. It's like, and I even say this in the videos, like if I get a lovely light roasted geisha from a coffee shop in Japan is the same as is more or less the same as the lovely light roasted coffee I buy from Chicago, or geisha, for example, right? So to me, I'm like, these are the ones that I think are like interesting, different, like outside of my sphere, right? Of course, if you come from those areas and perhaps that's what you grew up with, maybe that's boring to you now. You're like, okay, I like this especially. So just a different way of looking at it, just a different perspective. Keone says, I went to a coffee shop in Taiwan where they had some coffee plants in the courtyard of the shop. Ooh, I like that. Nicely, that's the nice thing about places like Taiwan or even Hawaii is that those are, or Thailand too, they're better suited for if you want to have coffee trees lying around than like where I live. Like where I live, the climate zone is what we call 7B, which is a winter climate. So like most of the tropical plants will die. So I have to bring everything back in the house that's outside right now. All right, let's have a taste of the coffee. See how it is. Maybe we should have left it a little bit to cool a little bit more. Maybe it was like if we're saying that yesterday we started 201, perhaps this is like still 204. The bitterness is a little bit pronounced. It's not as light as it was yesterday. Peter says some people brew their coffee with a pinch of salt. Salt coffee, ooh, that sounds interesting. I mean, and that kind of thing makes sense. Like, you know, if you add salt to something in small quantities, it can enhance the flavor. Like, you know, sometimes I'll be eating cherries, a little bit of salt. Ooh. Maybe some watermelon, a little bit of salt. Oh, nice. Or if you have nice oranges, right? A friend of mine showed this to me many years ago. He's like, take the orange, slice it up, olive oil, like extra virgin olive oil, and fresh cracked black pepper. Wow, actually really good. Really, really good. Especially when you get nice, sweet oranges. Peter says that coffee and tea brew on a campfire. There's that darn like heart. I hate you, you little heart. Campfire always tastes better too. I guess that's what it is. And coffee and tea brewed on a campfire. You know, I haven't had too much experience doing that because I haven't been camping in a while. I did finally order a little like power station so that I can use my CPAP on the road. And actually, I bought it because I was like, it was on sale for Amazon Prime Day, like a really nice discount. I was like, ooh, I can finally get one. And because I personally like to camp, I enjoy camping, but I don't like camping now. Like in the warm weather, like summer, I'm like too many bugs, too much crawliness, and like, you know what? When it's hot, you can only get so naked, right? You can only get naked, right? You can't get any more cool. You can't be cooler than being naked. So, wintertime camping, snow, bugs are gone, no mosquitoes, no bees, no nothing of that. Snakes are sleeping. a lot of those reptiles are sleeping. The only thing you have to worry about is like deer, bear, foxes, coyote, mountain lion. So the spectrum of animals that you have to worry about attacking you at night in the middle of winter is a lot lower. It's something to do with the smoke. Yeah, definitely that smokiness I can see with as it gets in there, you're getting that extra smoky flavor. I think would be very enhancing. Plus, when you're out camping, you're cooking and making a campfire, smoke is all over you, right? You're all like I don't know about you guys, but at least when I come back from a trip, usually when we've been building fires, like I can smell the campfire on me. All right, so what are we doing here? We're trying to see how does the donut go with the coffee. As you can see, the donut itself is typical cakey donut. This is not a yeast. This is not a raised yeasted donut. And this is the commercial type of chocolate donuts. So there's a little bit of that waxiness that comes with that commercial donuts. Now, normally I don't like that kind of thing. Like I don't like it in general, but sometimes in the right context, it can be enjoyable every blue moon. There's something about these commercial type of mini donuts, something about this crumb that just goes so well with the coffee. When the coffee hits the crumb in your mouth, the way that it comes together and starts to break down, there's something very pleasurable about that. By itself, now, of course, this is like 2 weeks old, and it's on the discount aisle, so it's getting past its prime. It's a little bit resistive. It's a little bit tougher without the coffee. But with the coffee, when it starts to break down, actually quite a sensuous experience. I also like the powdered donuts too. The powdered have traditionally been my favorites. Like I love the powdered donuts. Like if I go to the grocery store and I'm hungry, like I could buy a bag of powdered donuts. I that's why I try never to go to the grocery store. I'm like, I don't want to go there because I could buy the powdered, especially if they're on sale. Too much. Mom is with us. Good morning to you, Mom. How are you? All right, so one more donut and then a little more coffee. Like this is when you really start to drink the coffee smoothly, and then you end up finishing the whole bag of donuts. Bad idea. I don't know where you guys are in the world. What's your favorite donut now? Like I know in Malaysia and in Southeast Asia, there's a company called Jayco. They have them in Manila, and I've never actually been. A lot of people in Manila, my people that I know, they're like, "Oh, Jayco is really good." I have never been there. Like there's certain things when you're traveling. And I'm sure all of you have experienced this. You hear about these places that you'd like to try. You're like, okay, I gotta go check it out. And no matter how many times you've been to a place, it just maybe not. It's never been hot. Like one of the last things I'm gonna try on a trip, if I'm traveling like in Asia, donuts are not high on my priority list to go eat. So no matter how much people told me that they like Jayco, it's like, do I want to go to Jayco or do I want to go somewhere else? Like, there's a Jayco here that has donuts that are probably going to be what I'm very familiar with, or there's this place called Toastbox that's doing these crazy things where they're brewing the coffee like this. And you guys that are from that part of the world, you know what I'm talking about when I talk about Toastbox, right? Toastbox is that I've realized that Toastbox is kind of like a chain version of the kopitiams. I first had Toast Box when I was in Manila, probably about 10 years ago. And interesting. They would make the iced coffee sweetened with like milk and cream. Keone says, I used to eat Love's powder. Oh gosh, that is Love's is also Love's, for those of you guys not familiar. Like here we have in America, we have like Entenmann's and Hostess and all that. But in Hawaii, the local bakery is Love's Bakery. Yeah, totally. In the red bag. So much good food to be discovered in Hawaii. Anyway. All right, that should be good enough for today. If I don't stop now and sign off, then I'll probably eat the donuts while on camera, and you'll see me eating all these donuts, which is probably a bad thing, because then my mom might watch the show and she'll be like, "Why are you eating those donuts?" But if I get off now, then I can eat the donuts and nobody knows. All right, so that's pretty much it for today. And this week, thanks for tuning in this week. Glad to have you. What are you guys going to do in the weekend? Hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'm heading off to Philadelphia to go for my cousin's birthday. We're celebrating his birthday tomorrow with a luncheon, and I'll be there for the weekend. But we'll be back here on Monday talking more coffee. So come join us Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, at 10 a.m. Eastern. All right, Mom, good to see you. Keone, Peter, always good to see you as well. And everybody else, always pleasure to have you. Rusty, hope you have a wonderful weekend, and see you next time.